Hello everyone and very warm welcome to you all present here today. My name is Hazid and today I'm with Mr. Morgan as we will be discussing tips and tricks to level up your Excel skills. If you have any questions regarding topic, do leave them in the comment section down below and Mr. Morgan will answer them right after he finishes presenting. Without further ado, I will pass the mic to Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Hafiz. All right, a very good evening to everybody who are here. Okay, so we are here today to learn some tips and tricks about Microsoft Excel. Okay, so every Microsoft Office product has its own tips and tricks. So when we say Microsoft Office, we talk about Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, Publisher, Microsoft Access. All that is actually the family of Microsoft Office. So today we're going to learn about Microsoft Excel only, lah, okay, on the tips and tricks. All right. So I have grouped up some good and also helpful tips, okay, and also some tricks and the shortcut keys that will definitely will expedite our data management. Okay, now let's start with this selection of data. Okay, so I've created here three separate data types, and I will show it to you how we can actually select datas with hotkeys atau shortcuts. First one, say this is the data that we have here. All right, let's say I want to select the whole thing. Ensure, okay, so if you have not been using this practice, before you perform anything, okay, any calculation, any shortcut keys selections, okay, any tools, you always have to ensure that your cursor, this is what I call as a cursor, okay, your cursor must always be in the data range before you do any selection. So in this case, I'm going to park my cursor in one of the data here. Okay, let's assume my data is here. Then I'm going to select the whole data. So the option or the shortcut key that you can use is Control A. A stands for all. You see the Control A, you can jot it down. Control A is actually help us to select the data, but you must ensure that your cursor is at the data area. Then you just press the Control A. It will automatically select all the data in that range. But make sure there's no blank columns or blank rows. So if you notice my data here, you can see that it's actually there's no blank rows or blank columns. So it will select it. Now you have to understand about a bit of the basic fundamental system of Excel, where if that's going to be any blank rows or blank columns, just like what you're seeing right now, it will ignore it. Okay, it will only concentrate on the data that hasn't there's no blank columns or blank rows, just like this. Now let's go for the second set. Okay, this one you use a Control A, yeah. So don't worry how big is your data or how long is your data, doesn't matter. As long as you have Control A, it will select. Just make sure there's no blank columns or blank rows. If you do not have a reason to have a blank rows or blank columns in your data, please ensure you remove it. I have a shortcut for you to remove blank rows later in this topic, so just stay tuned. I will explain to you how you can remove blank rows within few seconds. Second, again on data selection, this will be very useful if you are using VLOOKUP, COUNTIF, pivot table. Okay, this selection will be very good, which is Control Shift Arrow. Okay, by using this combination keys Control Shift Arrow, it will also help us to expedite our data range selection. For example, let's say a very simple example. I want to select this whole range only for the month of November's data. Okay, it's very short for now, but just I'm very sure that you get the logic what I'm trying to say here. Let's say I want to highlight this whole range, and let's assume we have about 1,000 rows. Okay, 1,000 rows in that particular column. So just use Control Shift Arrow down. Okay, you see that Control Shift Arrow down will ensure that it will select the data from the top to the bottom. So even you have 200,000 data, it will automatically select until the last row. Okay, Control Shift Arrow down. So if it's Control Shift Arrow to the left, it goes to the left hand side. Okay, you can see it goes to the left hand side until the first column here. Now, my intention here, I want to show you a shortcut to highlight this whole thing. Sorry. Okay, I want to show shortcut to highlight this whole thing. So you can actually Control Shift arrow to the right because my cursor was at the column A earlier. So you saw it has already selected A to O, and I want to fulfill to the remaining of the row. Again, Control Shift arrow down, and that's it. My data got selected. So you can write it down, Control Shift arrow. So it depends your arrow where you're pointing to. Whether if it's left, it goes to the left. If it's right, it goes to the right. Same thing, it's on top or bottom. It's up to you. All right. So Control Shift arrow is very, very useful if you are using VLOOKUP, count if, sum if, pivot table, and all the other formulas or functions that requires us to select a very long range. Okay, so this will make the selection in a few seconds. Okay, third scenario. You see here we have blank rows. Okay, as I spoke to you, as I mentioned to you all earlier, you shouldn't have a blank row. Okay, because when you have a blank row, you are limiting the efficiency of your Excel. Okay, Excel assumption is there shouldn't be any blank rows or blank columns if you want to utilize the full potential of Excel. If you have, then of course you are limiting the potential. There will be definitely manual interference, okay, whenever you need to do your formulas. Definite. Okay, coming back to this, the third scenario. Let's say I wish to highlight this, including the blank rows. You can't use these two options that I've shown you earlier. You cannot, because that two option is only applicable if there's no blank columns or blank rows. But unfortunately, in my scenario 3, there is blank rows. So I can't use either one of it. So what choices that I have? Actually, I have two. First, you see my cursor, I have already pointed here. Okay, my cursor, I have already selected there. I will just use my shift key. I'm pressing my shift key and just click on this cell, and it will automatically highlight all the data. Okay, even though it's blank cells, it will highlight. But this might not be practical if you have a larger list. Okay, let's say you have about 50,000 records. So using this method is not practical. All right, which is actually, I'm showing you again. Okay, press the, go to the last cell, then press the shift button, then press the very first cell. Okay, so in this case will be, this is the first cell, this is the last cell. All right, so just press it and it will automatically will select for you the range, regardless for any blank rows or columns. But what if it's not practical? Let's say, what if we have about 50,000 record? So this is not applicable. So what I will suggest is you press, you can write this down, Control Shift Home. Okay, Control Shift Home. It will go up to the first cell, which is A1. Okay, you can go to the last record like usual. Control Shift Home, and it will select everything until this particular cell, A1. Then what you do, just press your shift and just lower it down so that it is selected. This is practical. Okay, Control Shift Home is practical. So if you have a smaller list, you can use the first method I showed you. If you have a larger list, then you have to follow the second way I've showed you. It saves us a lot of time. Okay, simple topic, but makes a lot of difference when it comes for timing. Okay, so that is on selection. Now let's go for the second one, multiple cells. Okay, doing calculation on multiple cells. Now let's say I'm not so familiar with Excel and its functionality, and I'm required to calculate the total for all the details that I have here. So what I will do is, the total is actually quantity, is just a simple multiply, which is quantity multiply with price. Then we get it. All right. So let me complete this. Then the next, this is the basic formula that every one of us will do. I cannot automate right now because the position of the details, the quantity and price is in a different column, and they are not neighboring. They are in a different place. So it's impossible for me to use any. When you drag down, we cannot use that. Okay, we can't drag the formula to your left or bottom. Cannot, because they are all over the place. So it took me quite a number of time for me to complete this calculation. It's the same calculation, but unfortunately, they are not in a very good position for me to expedite the calculation. But is there any shortcuts or any shorter way for us to do this? Definitely there is. I'll show you the better way. The calculation are the same, right? So what you should do first, highlight all the cells that you want to create the formula. They all share the same formula. So I've already highlighted all the total columns here and cells here. And I will perform the first formula. You can see my first formula is being stated here. Quantity multiply with price. Okay, and do remember, do consider this is all being selected right now. It's all being selected. Now, how can I inform to Excel that I want you to copy this formula and paste it in these highlighted cells as soon as I enter? Now, watch this. I'm going to press enter. I pressed enter. Nothing happened. Only this particular calculation was calculated. The others did not get calculated. So what is the correct way? Okay, this is where it gets a bit tricky. Let me select everything. Equals quantity, the same formula I'm going to do right now. But please do not press enter. Press Control enter. Press the control, do not let it go. Press the enter button. That's it, job done. So all your formulas, regardless where is the location, they share the same formula anyway. So Control enter will ensure it pastes the formula in all the cells that you have selected. Okay, this saves a lot of time as well. Imagine that we just completed this whole thing within few seconds. Okay, I'll show you a scenario too. This is also can be done. Let me highlight the whole thing here. Equal quantity multiply with price. All right, so next thing is control, enter, job done. Okay, so we have few ways of doing things. We have actually many ways of doing things in Excel. It's just that we just need to understand what are the tricks. Okay, what are the shortcuts? What are the hotkeys? Okay, that's available. That's all. All right, so jot it down, control enter. Okay, so this is the magic key, control enter, that does the trick. All right. You can, if you have any questions later after my presentation, you are free to ask any question regarding this. Any part that you think I went a bit fast, or you didn't get the picture, please let me know. I will revisit again. Let's go for blank cells now. Okay, blank cells. We all have sometimes in a report when we download from our system. Okay, can be any system. When you download, especially the old systems that I have gone through, that I've seen, is like this. Let's say this is the region, is west. Just because all this shares the same value, that means west, what the developer have done is he made it blank. Okay, he made it blank. That means all this data belongs to the region west. So dia malas nak masukkan all these values, so it made it blank. So we assume that all this belongs to west. Same things for all the remaining east. You see there's a lot of blank cells here, but the assumption is all this belongs to east. Not a bad way, okay, not a bad way, but unfortunately we can't use this for data analysis. Okay, for any analysis you can't use it. You can't use for your VLOOKUP, you can't use for your count if, sum if, your if function, whatever function you mention, you won't be able to do it because it is not complete. The region shouldn't be blank. And always remember this one thing, guys, that Excel, one row, one data, and it has to be a complete data. Do not forget that. If you really want to uh, create a dynamic system, I always in my class, right, I always prefer to create a system which is dynamic, which is when I say dynamic here, a simple system where one time we do the configuration, we do the setup, okay, and after that we do not revisit the formulas anymore. We let Excel to work by itself. Okay, it is always a good practice, if you can push all your work to Excel rather than you taking your time feeding information to Excel, that will be very productive. All right, so most of my classes I will always ensure that to show to the users how to set up, how to configure the formulas, and after that sit back and relax. You just key in the data entry, Excel will take care of the rest. Okay, so same thing goes here. So how do I populate the remaining of the values here? Very simple. You just need to highlight this first. Okay, just a column that you want to fulfill the blank cells. Okay, then we go to under the home. Okay, it's under the home. We have find and select, just in case if you do not know that, and select go to special. Okay, this helps us a lot. Go to special. There's actually a lot of features we can actually use in go to special. Okay, go to special. All right. So we have a lot of settings. Don't worry about all the rest. Don't get confused. Just go and select blanks. You know why I'm selecting blanks? Because I want Excel to only select the blank cells here because that's the only cells that I want to work with. So I'm going to click OK. So immediately you can see the go to special of only selected the blank cells in the range that I selected. All right. So let's get this job done. Don't select anything else. Okay, be careful. Immediately use the formula button. Okay, the formula is equal to the cell B3. Okay, my B3 is the one is pointing to west. Okay, B3. Here I'm actually in cell B4. Okay, this is a cell B4, but my formula is saying please select the value from B3. Now, this is a cell reference function or formula. All right. It is always a good practice in Excel that you create a formula based on cell reference. Just like this, like B3 is a cell reference. That means it's referencing the cell B3. All right. So if you want to, again, if you want to have a full potential of Excel or full tools that you want to use in Excel, you have to ensure that formulas are cell reference based. Okay. All right, so we have done this part. Only one cell, one thing you need to do, just refer the first cell. Okay, what it is referring to, basically is referring to the cell above it. Okay, so again, control enter, job done. Okay, we already know what control enter does. I just showed you before. It will automatically paste the formula, okay, in the selected cells. So in this case, the blank were the selected cells, and you know what is the formula is. Okay, so it will automatically put the formula, okay, apply the formula accordingly. So now you have the blank cells has been added with the correct values. Now you can do whatever you want. Okay, you want to use your pivot, you want to use your count if, VLOOKUP, anything, if formula. All right. So many things you can create with this. Okay, so do not. I've seen many users in this kind of scenarios. They do one by one. Okay, so unfortunately they do not know about these features, so they copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. So right now the list is a bit small. Okay, it's short, so doing one by one is still okay. But if you have a larger list, then definitely it's not practical. You might end up taking an hour or two just to complete the copy and paste. This is one example. What I'm telling is that we are working for Excel. That means, in order for me to proceed the VLOOKUP, I need to ensure that I fill in all the details here, right? Remember, that's now was blank. So what I do is I'm favoring to Excel. That means I am helping Excel to do its work. Whereas Excel is already ever ready for it to proceed without us interfering manually. So after this, you got no job. I mean, Excel will take care of rest. So ensure that you try to get yourself used to giving work to Excel rather than helping Excel to do its work. Okay, so we have done on the blank cells. Very simple, huh? Okay, this blank rows. This is always I receive this inquiry from the users all the time, especially when they download a report. There will be a lot of blank rows. Okay, there'll be a lot of blank rows. So how do we tackle this? Well, let's see. I'm selecting this. Okay, I already showed you earlier how we can do selection. All right, so you can use that. So I wanted to select all the blank rows. I want to remove the blank rows. Like what I said, if you have a blank rows, you can't do anything actually. You can't do even a simple sum. You can't do. You can't perform a simple sum. Okay. In case if you all are wondering, what is the significance of me removing the blank rows? Okay. Let me just give it to you here. Now let's say this is the values that I'm highlighting here. The sum of it, that means the total of it is actually 703. You can see it at my screen there. It's actually 703. Okay, 703. Now, let's say a user who doesn't understand about the importance of blank rows and just say he performs simple sum, okay, or just say auto sum here, and he just press the enter without realizing what he have done. You see the calculation or the sum that is showing it right now is 269. That's now I showed you is 703. So the analysis is wrong. You know why? Because there is a blank row on top of it. So unless you have a reason to have a blank row or blank column, then go ahead. You know what you're doing. But in the event that when you download your data and it has some blank rows like this, you have to ensure that you remove it, or else your analysis is going to be 100% inaccurate. Okay, so let's select the data. Okay, again, I'm going to go to find and select, go to special and blanks. Click OK, and you can already see it has already selected my blank rows. What we do next, make sure your cursor, you bring it to this row here, wherever there's a blank. Don't make it outside, then that it's not going to capture. Let's see what happens if I put it outside and I right click it. Then the whole blank selection goes off. Okay, so this is the logic we all have to understand. Make sure you select this. Select, go to special blanks. All right, make sure your cursor is inside or on top of the blank cells. All right, so that you have a selection like this. Now I'm going to delete or remove the blank rows. So just select delete. We need to delete the entire row. So select the entire row. If you have a blank column, select entire columns lah. So here I'm going to select the entire row. Click OK. Job done. Your blank rows is disappeared and your data is now perfect. And now if you go and do your auto sum, and it's going to give us a perfect answer of 703. Okay, this is very crucial. So do not forget this. Okay, blank rows. Okay, let's go to sum. Okay, I'm going to show you a shortcut key or the hotkeys for us to do a sum. Okay, to do a sum. Auto sum lah. So the total here, okay, just total it up, just sum it up here, is sum of this. Correct? So that's just okay. Let me just do it one further. Let me show it to you. Sum of all this is a total, so it's 169. All right. Or you can do this. If you want it to be fast, sum, control enter. So you saw how fast, if you know the shortcut keys, the hotkeys, how fast we can actually do our work. Imagine if it's a very long list. Okay, of course I know we can drag the formula, but sometimes doing this is very fast. Okay, so let's do this.
Hi everyone, I think we have a technical issue. So we will try to recover shortly and Mr. Morgan will come back in a short time. Sorry for the inconvenience.
here. Okay, Hafiz, can you see me? Huh? Can
Hi,
you?
Mr. Morgan.
Ah, yeah. Sorry, sorry. I I thought it was somebody else was calling, so I was ignoring the call. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Oh, okay. Was it too long? Was the disconnection?
No, no, I think it's 5 minutes only lah.
Okay, okay. All right.
Mhm.
Okay. Let me recap whatever that I should last few minutes. So sorry, everyone.
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
So all right. Share again. Okay. Coming back to this, I assume that I've already left this part out. Okay. So what I was showing here earlier, in case you have missed this, okay, let me show you again about the sum. Okay, the sum. Okay, so these are the staff's name, and this is January to February, January to March, the marks. Okay, so we have the total here. I want to total it up. So of course you can also use this method, no problem. You will still get the same answer, or you can use a sum. Also can. It's the same thing anyway. Okay, so a shortcut will be this. We just learned this, so let's utilize this. Highlight the whole thing, equals sum of all this. You know the answer is going to be. Don't press enter, press control enter. Remember that I just showed you all earlier, a control enter will auto populate the formula to the remaining of the list. So you have done the sum with a click of a button, and the grand total here we can actually use alternate equals. Okay, so this is the shortcut for auto sum if you are using a keyboard. A lot of users nowadays I see they prefer to use a laptop without a mouse. They prefer the trackpad or the touchpad. So of course for them it's easier if they know the shortcuts using the keystrokes better. So alternate equals, okay, it's actually the same thing as using the auto sum, and there you go, you get the answer. Everything was done using the keyboard. Okay, so this is one way of doing it, okay, which is very fast. Okay, now let's go to the subtotal. Okay, I'm going to show you to you what is a subtotal and what is the importance of subtotal. Okay, this subtotal is very important, especially when you're using a filter in your data. Let me remove this. Okay, here I have a set of data. All right. Okay, let me perform a sum first for the total. I want to sum it up. Sum. Okay, now watch closely here. I'm going to highlight this whole range. I'm going to close it and enter. I will get my sum. But remember, this total can be a longer list. Right now, I only have about 20, 30 data only, just for the training sake. Practically, in your working files, you're going to have a lot of data. So when you perform even a simple sum function, you're going to end up highlighting until the last record, correct? And bet most of us have been doing such all this time. Okay, which is okay, but it can be a painful process at times, like just taking our time to do a selection. That's where earlier, remember, during the selection tips and tricks, during the tips section, I showed you how you can select your data from the top to the bottom by pressing the control shift arrow. Okay, remember that magic word, control shift arrow. So you can actually use sum, open the bracket, control shift arrow down. That's it, job done. Excel has selected the range for me rather than me giving the information to Excel. Another reason to give the job to Excel rather than me highlighting. That means I'm helping, I'm feeding the information to Excel to give the answer for me. Wrong way. This is the correct way. All right. We should let Excel do the work. So I done a sum. Then I decided to see How much is the sum when where for all the transaction happen for the east? So I'm going to click OK. It doesn't move. It doesn't shortlist for the east. It doesn't. The function sum is meant for all the range, regardless whether you have filtered it or not. It will still totally it up. Okay, it will still totally it up. So this is not the correct function you're supposed to use if you have the intention of filtering and see the sum or average or whatever function accordingly. This is where the subtotal will come in for the rescue. Okay, I'm going to delete this. Equals. Okay, I'm putting the formula here. Subtotal. You just use the subtotal. That's it. That's the function you need to use. As soon as you selected that function, it will ask you a question. All right. You have selected the subtotal. Now, decide what is the second function that you would like to use. You can see there's a lot of functions there. Okay, a lot of functions. Okay, so I'm going to select sum because I need to select sum because I wanted to see a sum. So double click. Number of 9 is there. What is number 9? Can you see number 9 here? So it's actually a code for subtotal. When we put that number 9, it knows that we are calling out the sum function in the subtotal. So I'm going to select sum. Okay, so that is your function number. You can see there. That's your function number. Comma. Reference. This is your reference. Just highlight this whole range. That's your reference. Close your bracket. Enter. Your job is done. You will get 3114. Now let us do the same thing. Let me select the east. There you go. Now it works beautifully. It will sum for you whatever data is visible here. So this is the data that belongs to the east region. Okay, the sum for each region, the total. All right, so this is what you're supposed to use. So if you have been not getting the correct sum whenever you filter, okay, and you feel very devastating, that's because the sum doesn't auto select the range accordingly. It will just select everything. Okay, so use subtotal. You can also use a subtotal for your average. It's the same thing. Subtotal again, go and find where is your average, click on it, and the next thing you need to do is just select the reference again, and that's your average. Number of records or transaction that happens. What function that you can use? Let me show it to you. You can always use count or count A. Now, what is the difference between count and count A? Okay, always confuses the users. Huh? Okay, I'll give you a simple example. Okay, let's say here I have a record. This side also I have a record. Okay, I'm going to perform a count here. Sorry. I'm going to perform a count here. Count. So let us highlight this part. Let's see what the answer is going to give us. It gives us 7. Let us do the same thing here. Count. It's giving me 6. On my left hand side is giving me 7. On my right hand side is giving me 6. That's because the function count only will count for numbers. All the cell that has numbers. Here, the cell, one of the cell has a text. So let me change this into a number, and then it gives me 7. If that is going to be text, it's going to ignore that, and it will ignore that, and it only will count all the cells with numbers. That is if you use count. Now let me show you again with count A. Same process. I'm getting 7. Count A. Now I'm getting 7. The difference between count and count A. Count will count the cells that has numbers, whereas count A, the A stands for all. Okay, the count is A stands for all. The all means even though it's a text or even though it's alphanumeric or text, okay, it doesn't matter as long there's a value. Okay, as long there's a value in the cell, it will count. Okay, so in this example, the record here, you can the total here is going to be numbers. It's okay whether you use count or it's okay you use account A. So in your office later, I'm not so sure what is the column that's going to be there. So if it's going to be the text, then make sure text. Now just say in this example, I'm going to select this product column as my record counting. So can, not a problem. So I need to use count A because this is a text. Alphanumeric is a text automatically. So don't get confused. So there's 20 records. Overall, there's a 20 records here. Okay, so the margin here, let's say sum divide by record. That's the profit margin. So it's 155. Just say that's an average margin lah. Okay, that's a simple formula. Okay, that's it. We are done. So after this, you will have a dynamic system where when you select anything, any region here, you will get this. Okay, so you can select anything. Just say if you want to see only for the West, click OK, and it will show you the West. Now, before I end, okay, I'll show you one magic, okay, that every user should know. Okay, if you want to create a dynamic system, you need to always format your data range as a table. All right, this part here, it is under the home. Okay, go and look for format as a table. If you have not been using format as a table, I tell you, you are just going to love it the day you're going to start formatting as a table. I show it to you one simple, okay, a 5% of usage of a table. Okay, there's so many ways you can utilize a table in any even complex situation. It will make your life very easy. Okay, I'm going to format this as a table. You are free to select any format that's giving you here. So let me just select one of it. Okay. Okay, so I've already formatted this as a table. How do we know that we have formatted this as a table? You can see at the last menu here. Make sure your cursor is in the table. Then that menu will pop up. If your cursor is outside, the menu won't be visible. Only when it's inside, then it's visible. You can see it there. Now, what I wanted to show you here, when we format as a table, let's go to the table design. You will have an option called slicer. A beautiful features, a beautiful tool. I'll show you why. Insert slicer. What slicer does? Well, let me show it to you. Let's say I select these two, and these are my slicer. Now, what a slicer does? I just click here. My data is filtered. You see, you're having a dynamic. You can just select, or if you want to go select by product, go ahead. How's the product? Just select by product. If you can select, you want to select not how it's not doing for all the product PR001. That's your sum. That's your average. That is your this one. I just use a count. Sorry, I didn't use a subtotal. Sorry, it's supposed to be a subtotal, guys. Subtotal count A. A. Sorry. All right. So you can just select this. You can see the record will keep changing. All right. All right. It will keep changing. Don't worry about this. All right. So you'll have a nice system that talks to you. Excel is giving you the information, guys. Okay. So you have used your slicer just by formatting as a table, and that's it. Okay, then if you want to do a chart, go ahead, do a chart. Okay, why not? Why don't you just do a chart? If you want to do a chart, go ahead, instead a chart, let it done. All right, then you have a good system which is done in a very short period of time. All right, okay, just by clicking on it, okay, it will have a dynamic, all the things will be dynamic. All right, just a fast one, I'm just showing it to you. You can have all this done in a very short period of time. Okay, guys. Okay, so that's my a very quick introduction and also an overview of all the tricks that you're going to learn during the class. Okay, so I'm going to give it to Hafiz again. Okay, so Hafiz, you can take over the session.
I think, all right. Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
You're
Since we
welcome.
have no any question from viewer, I think that's all for today. Okay. So thank you so much for such an insightful presentation on our topic here today, Mr. Morgan.
You're
And
welcome.
thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining our live session here today. But it is not the end. Mr. Morgan will be having his public training on Microsoft Excel Intermediate and Advanced level coming 29 and 30 of March and 13 and 14 of April. If you're interested, you may reach out to us via the email and contact number provided down below in the ticker. Also, please like our Facebook page if you enjoyed today's session and follow us for future live sessions. Once again, thank you so much for joining us and we hope to see you soon. Till then, bye bye and take care.
Take care. Thank you, Isaac.